welcome to a real, spur of the moment almost version of the InstantCast. My name is Brent Allen. I am one of your hosts tonight, host of ThePewterCast. Joining me, as always, the man who always gives me really good ideas, Ren Daxt. Buddy, we've got some we've got some stuff to talk about tonight that wasn't going to wait for the next episode. So here we are, broadcasting live on Mixlr.com/ThePewterCast. We got people jumping in the chat room joining us tonight.
Yeah, buy low, sell high. There's my piece of good advice for tonight for you.
Buy low, sell high.
It works every time. Trust me, you'll make money. It came out, I guess, late last night about, Jameis Winston's camp getting ready to be suspended, and then it it did get confirmed from multiple sources that, I trust, that you trust, that probably pretty much follows NFL or Bucs Twitter trust. And it looks like Jameis is riding the pine for 3 games next year. The first 3 games, it looks like.
Yeah, the word on the street is he's not appealing this. He's just letting it go. So we will be diving into all of that. We have a special guest actually who's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. Before we open up the phone line, he's going to be calling in. We've got Tom Bassinger. Nobody seems to know how to actually pronounce his last name. Tom Metrics from Twitter, @TomMetrics. He is going to be calling in and just filling us in on all the details, everything that we know so far, what's fact, what's conjecture, and kind of setting us up. And then, guys, after that, we're going to open up the phone lines. You guys can call in. If you got something you want to say about the Jameis suspension, this is your opportunity to do it. This is why we do this. This is why the Instant Cast exists. During the season, we do this show following the football games, so that we can go and kind of give that immediate reaction. Well, this seemed like a big enough thing that some people might have some immediate reactions, Ren, and I think they're going to do that. So, guys, when that happens, now I'll tell you, normally we say this is a PG-13 show. I'm going to remind you guys, I don't have an edit button, not on this show, and somebody asked me earlier, and I was like, look, this is something that people are rightful to be mad about. So, whatever. I'm just I'm not policing anything. So, just throwing that out there. But Tom will be calling in here in just a minute. So, Ren, while we're waiting on that to happen, you mentioned earlier that it kind of came out last night. It was a report, not even a report. It was somebody's radio show who just said Jameis's camp. That's the word he used. Jameis's camp was preparing for at least a 3-game suspension. I don't know about you, but when I first heard that, I was like, what kind of report is this? This is not really a report, and lots of people picked it up and ran with it. What were you thinking when you heard that come out?
At first you're like, well, what does this guy know? And then come to find out that, you could pretty much say he's part of Jameis's camp, even though he reported Jameis's camp is preparing. He's, from what I understand, he's followed Jameis all the way through high school. He followed Jameis through college very closely because it's a Tallahassee radio show. He's got close ties with Jameis, apparently. I also heard that he was at Jameis's draft party at his grandmother's house when the Bucs drafted Jameis. So at first you were like, yeah, okay, what does this guy from Tallahassee know? But then you sort of find out who he is and his relationship with Jameis. You start to think that there might be some, legs to this. I think everybody in their heart of hearts knew that something was going to happen. There was going to be some kind of suspension, just the way the NFL works, and the vague language and damaging the shield, and Brady got games for breaking a cell phone. Ezekiel Elliott had no charges against him. The law enforcement we don't have enough to even bring charges against the guy. He gets suspended anyway.
Didn't he get suspended the whole season?
No, I think it was. I always get this confused. I want to say it was 6 games and it went down to 4. Or maybe he served all 6, but they kept appealing it, and he ended up serving it in the middle of last year.
Ezekiel Elliott did.
Yeah. Ezekiel Elliott. So, and then and now we're hearing that it's not. Then there was a rumor, sort of like, well, how can they give him, 3 games if possibly, because it was the same guy, the same radio guy that sort of broke the story about he's preparing for a suspension. He also said it's probably going to be because he failed to report it to the team,
right?
Or or the NFL, and that with the language in the collective bargaining agreement, anything that damages the shield, they could they can pretty much do what they want as far as suspension wise. But then once Adam Schefter broke it, it's becoming clear that they actually are suspending him because of conduct, which means it's not a technicality.
Is he? See, I haven't heard that part yet.
Yeah, he's being suspended because of conduct. It's not because of technicality, and also it can go up from 3 games if Jameis doesn't meet certain requirements, which I would imagine would be, I don't know, maybe some counseling, maybe not appealing.
Right. That was the not appealing thing. I thought that was interesting because somebody threw that out on Twitter earlier, and I kind of went, because the word is, and Tom Bassinger, he's going to help clarify all this for us. The word is that he is not appealing this, and you had the undisclosed things that he had to do in order to get clear of this. And otherwise it would go up. And some people were kind of even thinking, and I could almost see, like, after what they went through with Tom Brady a couple of years ago, and even Ezekiel Elliott, nobody appeals this. Let's check this out. This should be Tom here. Thanks for calling in to the PewterCast. Is this Tom?
This is.
Tom, thank you so much for calling in. This is Tom. Am I saying it right? It's Tom Bassinger. Is that right?
Bassinger.
Tom Bassinger, a.k.a. Tom Metrics of the Tampa Bay Times. Man, really glad to get you on the show here tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, we'll kind of get right down to it. We are live. We've got lots of people listening. I want to say, just give a shout out to everybody who is joining us live at the Mixlr chat room, mixlr.com/ThePewterCast. You guys are tearing it up in the chat room. You guys continue. But Tom, thanks so much for coming on. I know we've got you here for just a few minutes. The big question, we're going to have some phone calls later on from some various fans to get their thoughts on it. But one, can you kind of fill us in on what all do we actually know about the Jameis Winston suspension, that news that officially came down, I guess, this afternoon? What do we know? What's still conjecture? And then I would love to know your thoughts on it while we have you here on the phone.
Well, first off, let me just start by saying, some of the stuff I'll probably talk about here is, in the grand scheme of things, is pretty inconsequential relative to being a victim of sexual assault. So, I don't want to come across as minimizing, any of that. So with that on the record, I think there's still a lot that we don't know at this point. Jameis Winston hasn't even been officially suspended yet. And the last reports I've seen, I don't know that he's been notified, though surely he's gotten word of what's coming down by now. One interesting bit that I learned today, there's been a lot of talk about a third person in that Uber vehicle. Mm-hmm. We still don't know whether that's the case. Mike Garofalo reported on NFL Network that Ronald Darby, who's spoken on behalf of Winston, throughout this earlier in this investigation, mm-hmm. Was not in the car the entire time. So it sounds as though it's a possibility that Winston was alone in the car at some point. Uh-huh. So I think that's one. One bit of news.
Tom, with that, just to clarify, because from what I remember of the reports coming out was she was saying that she was in the car alone with Jameis, and Jameis was saying, no, I wasn't in the car alone. There were other people in the car. And then Ronald Darby came out and said, I was one of the other people, and we always had this mysterious third person. Is what you're saying that at some level, actually both sides of that could be true?
That's, knowing what we know right now, and I'm sure that, more is going to come out over the next few days. I feel like that's a possibility. That Darby may have been in the car for a stretch of time, and it's also a possibility that Winston might have been alone in the car with the driver. Yeah, so it's possible. That's my read on it. But
we don't know. Like that I guess finding has not yet been released by the NFL, and should we expect an explanation from the NFL as to the results of their findings, I guess?
Well, what I think we can expect from the NFL is maybe some kind of broad statement about the suspension. They may be more specific with Winston, the team, and his agent. But unless that information is leaked, we might get something very, very broad from the NFL that doesn't get into the specifics.
Yeah, it's all very, it's a big. I don't want to say it's a big shock to Bucs fans. I think most of us felt like there was something coming down because, as you sort of talked about how broad, the NFL tends to be, especially on this subject. So from what I'm going to sort of take you out of the newspaper man here. From what how do you feel about it? And I know you don't root for the Bucs or root against the Bucs, and you just report on the Bucs. How do you feel about how it was handled? Do you think it was fair, or do you think it was too light? Where exactly do you come down on this Jameis Winston suspension?
Well, I want to know more, but this has been going on for 8 months or so. So it's hard to suggest that the NFL didn't take its time in being thorough, but we'll see. The thing for me at this point, if I put myself in the shoes of the Bucs organization, you have to, this is coming at a time where Winston's eligible for a contract extension. Mm-hmm. And given the past allegations at FSU, the rape accusations, the cafeteria incident, the BB gun incident, and now this, I'd be hesitant at this point to hand out. Forget the amount of money, but just guaranteeing anything long term to somebody that I'm not sure whether I can trust. And again, there's more to be learned here.
Right.
But if I'm in their shoes, I'm having a hard time feeling comfortable guaranteeing several years and tens of millions of dollars to someone who isn't representing my organization in the way that I want.
Yeah, brand optics is going to be a big thing for Jameis Winston going forward with the Buccaneers and his new contract.
And that's an important point. There's what actually happened, and then there's perception, and sometimes. Yes, you want to find out all the facts, and then arrive to a conclusion. But perception, reality is perception matters, and especially when you're operating a business. And Winston, as we know, is a polarizing figure in the Tampa Bay area, mm-hmm. and this certainly isn't going to create any more unity.
That's true. Well, sort of the metrics or the numbers inside the game is more of your wheelhouse. That's what you do for the Times. That's what's in your Twitter handle. I'm sure you're already working on some article about either yay, look at Fitzpatrick, it's going to help us for the first 3 games, or boo, it's not. Or I'm sure there's something you've dug up and you're going to put an article out soon. Is there anything you can sort of tell us, a little preview, a little nugget that you found so far? And I don't care if it's like, hey, look forward to this, or hey, this is going to be bumpy. Just anything you want to share with us on that front.
Well, I think the first thing I'd say is, I hinted at this on Twitter that, the Bucs start with the Saints, the Eagles, the Steelers, and a lot of people will be ready to write them off and say that they're going to start 0-3, because of the Winston suspension. Mm-hmm. I'm not ready to go that far just yet. I think if this suspension, were to go down, it's better to have it done early and get it out of the way, rather than this thing hanging over the team for any amount of time. Plus, in September, there's a lot of randomness. There's a lot of chaos. Teams are still trying to find their identity. They're still gelling. There's you look at what the Saints were last year. I think they lost their first 2 games and then ran off down the stretch. The Eagles nearly lost to the Giants. They needed a 62-yard field goal to beat the Giants. And then the Steelers nearly lost to the Browns. So, anything can happen, especially in September. I think if the Bucs can get out of September 2-2, I think that's possible. It's going to be incredibly difficult. It doesn't look like the Saints or the Eagles regressed much at all on paper, but I'm not ready to throw in the towel on the season just yet. The defense, it can't be the league's worst defense again. But if that defense can be anything near league average, and Fitzpatrick can just not turn the ball over, they can hang in those games. So, one thing I'd say is to not panic just yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were on a different show earlier this week, and I was saying something similar that, Fitzpatrick, who presumably will be our number 1 backup quarterback, he's enough of a game manager, and there's enough talent around him on this team that, as long as he can just manage the game, the rest of the team should be able to carry him through that. Tom, I had one more question before we let you go. We've heard that, the suspension is supposed to be 3 games, but it could go up if not for certain things that get met. Do you have any idea or any word on what some of those things might be, as far as what could trigger a more game suspension?
I wish I knew for sure. One thing I wonder is whether the NFL is just allowing itself some flexibility in the event that they find out something else. I don't think at all that this is a failure to report issue. I mean, 3 games is an awful lot for a failure to report. Even for a league that's very image conscious. But I wonder whether part of that, we'll find out soon, I'm sure, but whether part of that's allowing the NFL allowing itself, just, hey, we're going to keep an eye on this situation, before the season, into the season, and throughout the season. And if something else comes to light, that, we could tack on more games. Something else I want to add real quick is that, I know Tom Jones, my colleague Tom Jones, posted tonight a story about Jameis Winston having to go, and I just want to add on to that if I can.
Oh, yeah.
I still want to see what else comes to light here, but the foundation of any relationship, a friendship, a marriage, your teammates, it's trust. And right now, the face of your franchise, I think the big question is, can you trust Jameis Winston? At what point won't you trust Jameis Winston anymore? Mm-hmm. And if that trust is fractured in any way, that's the kind of thing that could tear a team apart. So, that's going to be a really difficult thing to navigate over the next few months is the trust issue.
Yeah, and not just with the organization, but as you say that, it has me start thinking of what could this mean with his teammates. Certainly there'll be some who support him no matter what, but there might be others that kind of have something. Who knows? Who knows? The trust
absolutely,
is a big thing.
and I don't know that he's to my knowledge addressed this in a group fashion with his teammates. So. You wonder what's on the mind of his teammates, and we hear a lot about Jameis Winston and his leadership abilities, and your face of the franchise, whether something happened that night or not, the face of your franchise, the guy that you're going to be investing tens of $millions in. Well, let's not lose sight of this. He can't put himself in that kind of situation, especially in light of what happened at FSU. And I know a lot of people say, well, he wasn't charged. There was a pretty damning New York Times story that came out, I want to say in 2014, that that doesn't prove that Jameis Winston did anything, but you can take away that the Tallahassee Police Department did not handle that case well at all. So you add all this up, again, he just, whether he did anything or not, he just couldn't. He can't put himself in that kind of situation.
Yeah,
and then not tell the team.
Right.
I think my understanding is that the team found out about it when we all found out about it.
Yeah.
When BuzzFeed dropped the story, and if I'm the Bucks, I'm furious over that.
Sure.
Do you think the Bucks start thinking quarterback? Start looking at quarterbacks next year's draft?
Wow, that's loaded, but I'd say you'd have to. I mean, you can't go all in on Jameis Winston right now.
Well put, my friend. Well put.
All right, Tom. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out to call in and just kind of give us the skinny as far as what we know, what we don't know, and even some of your own insights into that. Definitely respect the work that you do for us here in Tampa Bay and bring that in. And man, just a real pleasure to get you on the show. It's been something I've wanted to have for quite a while now, and just glad to get us. Hopefully we can get you back, as the season moves forward, however it goes.
Yeah, let's do it again. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. We really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks,
All right,
Tom.
take care.
All right. Well, guys, that was Tom Bassinger, and I meant to ask him when we could see a piece coming from him, but I forgot. So you guys will just have to check him out, tampabay.com, or if you still subscribe and get a newspaper, then go to the sports page and you'll see it when it posts, I guess. So that was Tom Bassinger. Well, Ren, I have two thoughts coming out of that conversation before we open up the phone lines. And guys, we are getting ready to open up the phone lines here for you all. One note that I have, we were talking earlier this week, you guys, that we have a show that'll be dropping. Actually, as we record this, it will drop overnight. So it looks like you guys are probably on the podcast feed, because the vast majority of people listening to this episode will catch this in the podcast feed. You guys that are joining us live, you just get the early version. But you're going to have two Buccaneers podcasts from the PewterCast here in your feed. But I believe it was on that show earlier. We had talked about how many QBs we're going to have on the roster this year.
Right.
That was an answer to the question, and I think this at least guarantees us we'll have 3 on the roster.
Yeah. Ryan Griffin gets another year.
Yeah, Ryan Griffin's in for another year unless the new CFO Blue Cow really comes on. But I think you and I both saw enough out of minicamp to go, he's our camp arm.
Yes.
So that's one note, and then something that I'll be interested to watch. I noted last year, remember when Doug Martin was coming back off of his suspension? There were no banners. As they started putting banners up of the various players, the key players around the stadium, there was none of Doug Martin. I'll be interested to see if they do that, if Jameis is on those banners this year. You think he would be? I think that will – I don't want to read too much into that, but I think it will tell us something as far as what the organization is thinking as far as moving forward with Jameis. So just something to watch, kind of on the back end.
I think they have to put him up there.
You almost have to, don't you?
No, you have to, because it doesn't matter what you feel about Jameis or not as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
Either like if they're 100% behind him, or they're still wait and see, or they're like, we got to get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
No matter how they feel, if they don't put him up there, it's going to tip their hand, and everybody will know.
Yeah, it could be. So
you just have to put him up there, and because you just have to.
Yeah. Now, and the other thing too, and I thought Tom did a really good job of pointing this out, kind of at the beginning of his phone call. The guys, I do want to remind us what we're talking about here is we're talking about football, and we can be upset or not be upset that our guy is getting suspended. I certainly have my thoughts and feelings about what that means to our football game. And I'll say, Ren, we don't know what happened that night. We don't know if it did. We don't know if it didn't. We have not been a part of that thing. But in no way, shape, or form, as we begin to talk about this in terms of our football team and what this means for our football season, Tom did a great job, and I just want to echo that. This does not in any way lessen or mitigate or excuse any actual improper conduct that might have happened or, any kind of sexual harassment that is going on out there. That's just never okay. But we are going to be talking about this in light of our team. So with that, Ren, do you have anything else you want to add before I open up the phone line?
No, let's open it up.
All right, let's open it up, guys. A phone line is officially open. I will let you guys know we have one line. So if somebody is on the line, just wait. Call us back once the phone line clears. The number, if you guys would like to call in, give us your thoughts on the Jameis Winston suspension and everything that has to do with it. 864-729-BUCKS. That's 864-729-2827. Ren, it has been so long since I've said those numbers. I wasn't sure if I was going to remember our phone number, but that is it. I'm dropping it in the chat room for you guys. Would love to have you guys give us a call, and we'll just kind of wait for you guys to give us a call. 864-729-BUCKS. That's 864-729-2827. Your thought, there it is. Didn't have to wait that long at all. You are on the InstantCast with Brent and Ren. Who do we got here tonight?
I won. It's Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Harrison.
Dave
What's up,
Harrison,
buddy?
Locked on Bucks. The Pewter Plank for about 8
Pro
more days, 9
Focus.
more days. Pro Football Focus, Scouting Academy, soon to be Bucks Nation. What's going on, my
Family
friend?
man.
Family man, world traveler. What's up, buddy?
Military.
What's up? Yeah,
like,
James and I just got done recording, so I jumped over. I caught the very end of what Tom was saying, so I didn't get to hear everything he said. I'm looking forward to hearing that, obviously, in the morning when I download the episode. But, yeah,
Well, Dave,
we were talking earlier on Facebook, and I figured I'd come in here.
Well, you and James, I'm assuming you guys just finished recording Locked On Bucks. Probably you did your episode on the Jameis Winston suspension. So give us a little preview of what you guys talked about.
Everything you guys said to ruin the show.
So no one
everyone
has to download yours, and they can just do ours.
Yeah, I mean, really what it boils down to is, so I've been reading a lot of reactions from you guys, from other media personalities, from fans, the NFL Network stuff going on, and I had my own reaction, obviously, which at first was a little bit visceral, kind of where a lot of people are saying is like, what are they basing this potential decision off of? And I just kind of came to realize that I don't really know much about the investigation. I know basically what everybody else in the public knows. I don't have any inside sources that I can really, post up on a wall and say, this is what I know and this is how I know it. But so I'm to the point now in my night where I'm just going to wait and see what the actual decision is, whether it's 1, 3, 6 games, 4 games, and wait to find out what the NFL releases and what they found, and then kind of just go from there. Because at the end of the day, the Buccaneers are the team that I cheer for every Sunday. I don't want the starting quarterback not on the field for any reason, whether it be injury, whether it be suspension, anything. However, as a human being, I don't want a person who doesn't deserve, I suppose, kind of the life situation that he found himself in, to be in it if he doesn't deserve it. And that's not in any way, shape, or form me saying that Jameis has done something to not deserve it. But if that's the case, then I want the NFL to find out, and I want action to be taken, because I don't want to see someone who behaves that way lifted up more than he possibly should be. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve the opportunity to rectify himself and fix the rest of his life and go on to be a better person. So I'm not saying, kick him out of the league and send him, to play football with Johnny Manziel, but that's just kind of where I'm at as far as, the human aspect of it versus the fan aspect of it. And I heard you talking about that, where there's a team side of this, but then there's also a person side of this. And I think it's important to kind of balance the two,
Yeah, because, and just to be clear, because as we record this, and Tom mentioned this when he was on the phone with us, we have not actually received word from the NFL what the suspension is or what it will be or exactly how many games it will be. All we have is a report from a fairly reliable guy, Adam Schefter, who, is generally right about these things. But we have also seen him be wrong before in the past. So, we don't officially know, and it's hard to go off that. But he tends to be right about this kind of stuff, which is why we take this a little bit more serious. No offense to Jeff Cameron, I just don't know much about him, and whatever. So yeah, it's something there, Dave. You got anything else here before I let you go and open this up for other people?
Well, I have a question.
Oh. So the last thing really...
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. You can finish off, and then I'll hammer you one.
The last thing really, and I mentioned this in our podcast, so you will hear this again if you download the Locked On Bucks podcast, which I highly recommend you do. But really, at the end of the day, whether he did what he's accused of doing or did something similar or did something close or did something, in the ballpark, whatever he did or didn't do, Jameis Winston's got to get better at understanding situational awareness. He's got to know who he is, where he's at, when he's there. Like, he's got to get to the point where he understands it. And he may already, because it's March 2016 and now we're in June 2018. So he may have already gotten to that realization. But if he hasn't yet, he needs to get to the point where he realizes that he is an NFL quarterback 24/7, whether he's in Arizona, whether he's on vacation in the Bahamas, or whether he's in Ray J. Yeah. He is a Buccaneers quarterback. He's an NFL quarterback. And what he does impacts more than himself.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Look, you're into the Bucs about as deep as anybody can. I mean, you dedicate hours of your day, editing sites, writing articles, you do podcasts, you're active on Twitter. Have you lost trust in Jameis Winston?
Have I lost trust in Jameis Winston? No. I don't have full confidence that he is going to turn out to be what I hoped he would be, though.
Okay. All right, that's fair. That's fair. I felt the show was going to be more sort of like a fire and brimstone show, let people vent. But then after listening to Tom come on and the issue with trust was something that I was thinking about too, but I kind of didn't want to bring it up yet. It was kind of like I don't really want to talk about that because the Bucs are my team and Jameis is the quarterback of my team. So I don't really even like you said. And Brandon said, and I've said, like, it hasn't officially happened yet. Mm-hmm. It looks like for, all hell and high water, it's going to happen, but it hasn't officially happened. So I kind of wanted to tread lightly around the trust issue, but I think for me at least, and I'm just sort of, answering the question that I just asked you, it's really going to depend a lot on Jameis's response. Yeah. Now, I would love for him to stand up in front of the media and ask questions. I think it's probably going to become more of a, like a written statement, and then all the questions after that, he's just going to, say I'm not talking about that, when he gets in front of the media during training camp. How would you like to see Jameis handle this possible, more than likely suspension?
I think that we're going to get a very canned response. I think that's going to happen. It's probably already in the works. Like when you hear his people are bracing for suspension, I think that's probably what they mean is they're formulating their response. I don't believe he should appeal. I don't know if he will. I don't believe he should. And my thought process is this. Either, like, eventually there's got to be a last time we have drama with Jameis Winston. Because one of two things is going to happen. He's either going to learn from all these experiences and it's not going to happen again because he's going to stop putting himself in bad situations, or the league is going to decide that he's no longer going to get the attention he gets and they're going to move him away. So either way, at one time or another, we're going to have our last Jameis Winston drama incident. If he's going to control that and he's going to decide that this is the last time, then he needs to get away from it as soon as possible. Doing an appeal process is just going to drag that process out, and it's just going to keep his name attached to the story. It's going to keep the story alive just that much longer. And we're going to be in 2019, 3 years removed from the actual incident, before he even gets to begin to move past this and have this be the last incident in his career and become a part of his history. Whereas now, if he doesn't appeal, he just serves out a suspension, whatever it is, he can get to the end of that suspension. Once that suspension is over, he can move on. And hopefully the only drama we get out of him is on the football field in a good manner. And he can continue his life and this will be the last time we hear of negative drama involving Jameis Winston. So, and that with what Adam Schefter said about his money situation this year, he's playing out the last year on his rookie deal. He doesn't start making the big money until next year. So he's really not losing a whole lot per game this year anyway. So from a financial standpoint, it makes sense. From a reputation standpoint, it makes sense from just to get it over with and move on. And I don't know. That's kind of the way I would look at it. I don't know who his camp is. I don't know what they're telling him. So that's just kind of what I think.
Do you feel that could be viewed as being selfish? Because, if he appeals it, he can sort of push back his days. And if you look at the schedule, he could set it up where the Bucs play Chicago, Atlanta, Browns, or like Atlanta, Browns, Cincinnati, or Browns, Cincinnati, Panthers. Like, those games are a lot more winnable for a backup quarterback and the team than at least we think so on paper, than a Saints, Philly, Pittsburgh. So
that's true.
Do you have
that is true, and I haven't taken the.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, what you're saying is very true. I haven't really taken the look of James and we're going to record another episode tomorrow, and that's where you kind of more into the team aspect of the whole thing, whereas what his suspension means for the franchise. And that's definitely a valid point where, they talked about how this first 3-game stretch is the hardest, 3-game stretch to open up a season in Super Bowl era. So, yeah, I mean, if he just pushes the appeal process for the purpose of getting through those 3 games and then taking his 3 games later in the season where it's a little bit easier to swallow, yeah, I mean, that's definitely a strategic move they could decide to make as a franchise. I mean, that's part of the game, right, is strategy and then playing within the rules that you have at your disposal. So, I mean, some people would probably look down on it, but, I mean, it's there for a reason. It's available for a reason. And, I'm not going to blame anybody for using the weapons they have at their disposal. So, yeah, good point.
All right. Well, David, tell everybody where they can download your podcast to find out more about what you and James said. And then I'm going to let you go. We'll open up this phone line for other people to call in.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on, guys. So Locked On Bucks is our podcast. It's on Twitter, Locked On Bucks. It's on iTunes. It's on all the major podcast platforms. I guess Google just came out with a new podcast app. I'm not really familiar with it, but apparently it's on there as well. You can find me on Twitter at DH82_Bucks, at Locked On Bucks, and James is at JYarko_Bucks. Thanks again. I'll be listening. Appreciate your guys' time.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, David.
All right.
Ren, we got to find out what that Google platform is. Make sure that we're on it, buddy. I hadn't heard about that yet. I assume that's their replacement for Podcast Addict. I would assume.
What? Google Play?
Yeah.
Isn't it Google Play?
No, I think it's something else. Anyway, let's not talk about that right now. Lots of good stuff there from David. You know, as he was talking, I was thinking about this. You know, the Bucks have already exercised Jameis's fifth-year option.
Lines are open.
So, lines are open. Hey, somebody call in. 864-729-BUCKS. That's 864-729-2827. We will take your phone calls. Give us a call. But the Bucks have already exercised his option, and if I remember right, his contract is it guaranteed now that they've already optioned it for his fifth year?
They picked up his fifth-year option?
I think they did. I'm pretty sure I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, okay, sure. I mean, anything can happen as far, if this sort of investigation and the behavior doesn't change, if the investigation charges are true, which it looks like they are, it could go south. His career as a Buccaneer could go south really quick.
Yeah.
So they picked up his option. I don't know if that guarantees it. It guarantees that the Bucks have the right for the fifth year, as far as I know.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that works. So, all right, I think it bears clarifying right now. Unless the NFL comes out with some sort of tangible proof that something happened, we still live in a society that says innocent until proven guilty. Now, in the court of public opinion, that may be different. But legally,
nowadays.
Yeah, but legally, it is still innocent until proven guilty. And as we all know, they can suspend somebody. They can go through their own investigation processes, and he still may not be proven guilty. I want to be careful that we're not saying, oh, they're coming down with a suspension, ergo he did something very inappropriate. And it's possible that he did, and it's possible that that's why they're suspending him. But one doesn't necessarily mean the other. It is going to affect us. Let's see who we got calling in. Right, yeah. You are on the line with Brent and Ren with the InstantCast, and you hung up on us. Well.
Probably an accident.
Ooh. I think it actually might have been David calling back, so he might have pocket dialed us. I'm not entirely sure. The phone number looks similar. So, whoa, here we go. You are on the line with Brent and Ren for the InstantCast. Who do we got here tonight?
Hey, it's Craig in Vegas. How are you guys?
Craig in
Vegas. I said it for you, Brent.
What's going on, Craig?
Buddy?
So let's talk some draft tonight, right? Let's get into it.
Oh, my.
2019 draft.
Oh, no.
Gator great Will Greer. Here we go.
Coaching and coordinators. Is that what we're getting into tonight?
That's it, man. Gator great Will Greer becoming a Buccaneer.
Oh,
yeah.
Nick Saban.
Do we have
Nick
to?
Saban.
So, oh, man. So there's all right, so the initial response I think I had, it was just like probably other fans, like, got screwed again. This is something that's been dragging on. It was from 2016.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, wow, this is not good. And then, but, you put yourself in any sort of situation, and whether you're innocent or not, or, only those people in that car know what went on that night.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the only ones that can own up to the story.
Yeah.
And I also think, too, is I know, Brent, you're a father like I am as well, too. I've got daughters as well, too. And I think, well, what if it was my daughter in that situation as well, too?
Yeah.
And, that's, do you, if I am, then there's something that really went down, then, I don't know how you don't at least minimum file police investigation. So, here or there. So, listen, I'm a Gator here, But I'm a big Jameis fan. I've got a couple of Jameis jerseys, Jameis autograph stuff. So I'm a very in the pro Jameis camp as well too. And I see the future the kid has for our team. And we've never had a franchise quarterback thing we've had. And I've been back to the Doug Williams days, Spurrier days, whatever it is. We haven't had this much talent under center at the quarterback. Maybe Steve Young, but Steve Young was traded off pretty quick as well too. So he never got a chance to blossom here as well too. He probably went to the right system as well too. So there's two sides of it. You're like, wow, we got our franchise quarterback, but can we trust him long term as well too? Mm-hmm. Because when this kid's right, this team is very, very good. Mm-hmm. And now we've got to miss the first 3 games potentially as of now.
Yeah.
And listen, I know that people are saying, well, Nick Foles got there, and other backup quarterbacks had some good years last year as well too. If your backup quarterback's playing in more than 4 quarters in a whole season, you got a problem. Right. And that's the reason they're a backup quarterback. They're not. It's the one position other than, well, actually for us, field goal kicking. You don't want to rotate all year, and it's one position you don't want to rotate. That's your guy, and maybe you bring the backup in a blowout, and that's about it. And so you don't know how to go. There's so much positive. The kid is great in the community. He's done nice things in Tampa, and you see all that as well too. Mm-hmm. And then Tom Jones writes that nasty article tonight. I read that as well too. But that's Tom Jones. That's clickbait crap for him. He does the same. Just when he brought up the thing when he spoke at the school and whatever that. So I take Tom Jones with a grain of salt. I think, print media in a sense is dying a little bit as well too. So they're going to do anything to get as much clicks as possible as well too.
Yeah.
So
Craig,
yeah.
let me ask you a question, because you brought this up. You're a father. I'm a father. You've got a little girl. I've got a little girl. Put this back on us. All right. I want you to go back to when you were 21 years old. All right. 22 years old. Okay. Think of yourself then. Are you the same person now as a father that you were back then?
No, okay. But at the same time is mm-hmm. the way. Listen, I'm not questioning if Jameis or anybody's raised, but there's certain things, if you instill the right values in someone mm-hmm. at an early age, you hope that they make the right decision when they're put into a situation, whether in an Uber car or in life or wherever they're at in their days as well too. You got to, there's a line you just can't cross, right. And you got to hopefully you instill into your kids or whatever that don't cross that line as well too.
And it doesn't matter how much you've had to drink that night. It doesn't matter. Yep. It doesn't. You're still responsible for all of that. So, but here's my question, because I want to walk this line real carefully, because I don't want to excuse any of that behavior. All right. But, if you think about this, I think David just brought it up, and maybe even Tom brought it up earlier. This is something that happened 2 years ago, right? And here we are 2 years later. That's a lot of time in the life of a 21, 22-year-old, now 24-year-old. He's also about mm-hmm. to become a father. He's about to get married. What would need to happen for Jameis? And again, we still don't know if he actually did anything. Just because the NFL is going to suspend him doesn't actually mean that he did anything. Is this something like, if Jameis were to still come back out and stand by his guns and say, no, I didn't do it, but I'll accept the suspension, do you still ride with Jameis in that situation? Or is there something Jameis can do as far as like admit guilt, pay penance, repent and come back and be a better person, like kind of that redemption story? Like, could either one of those two fly for you, in which trust kind of gets regained with Jameis?
Listen, either way thing he does, I'm okay with it. I know he preaches the gospel, but he has to look himself in the mirror uh-huh. at night before he goes to bed, and the mirror won't lie.
Right.
And so eventually, it'll catch up to you, some way, somehow, whether it's a scathing book or a civil suit or something comes up where, so either way you go there, you can't go wrong. Mm-hmm. So, but I, at the end of the night, he's got to look at himself, and he's got a kid now and a family, and, he'll know if he's telling the truth or not as well, too. And it is what it is. I think there are people who are playing in the NFL that have never been suspended. that got away with a lot worse or did worse things that are known that were never suspended as well too. And so the NFL can't play the holier than thou card because even their own owners get in trouble and do a lot worse things than what Jameis is being accused of as well too, i.e. Irsay with the Colts as well too. I mean, what he did and whatever, he should have been forced to sell that team. If there's some, he did a lot worse situation. He endangered people's lives. What he did as well too. If he'd have gotten a car accident that night and killed somebody, what would the NFL have done that night as well too? Mm-hmm. So the NFL, I know they're to protect the shield as well too, protect that as well too. I also think too, and I'll bring up one other point with this. How much do you think the Glazers? I know they care. I know they care to a point and embarrassment as well too, but I always feel like, and ever since Malcolm has moved on and seriously since he passed away and just was not involved in the day, the Bucs aren't the most important thing to these guys. I still say it's Man U brings them so much money and so much, around the world recognition, and so I think if they don't kill that global brand, I think the Bucs are an afterthought, to me. Because they can say that, but they know that's the breadwinners is Man U in the English Soccer League. That to them is the one gravy chain they will never jeopardize as well too. I think the Bucs to me are still an afterthought for these guys. I know they're there and they say the right thing. They show up to enough stuff as well too, but I still say that's the franchise they care most about than the Bucs.
Well, let me put this question to you then. Put yourself as a Glazer, knowing what you know now, and let's say that the suspension does come down. Let's say the suspension does come down as misconduct, not failure to report. Do you sign Jameis Winston to a long-term quarterback? Is he still your guy, or do you start looking the 2019-2020 free agency? Do you start looking for a new franchise quarterback? What would you do?
If it's conduct that there's a written report, you could still sign him to an extension with a lot of money not guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So you hold the Bucs hold the leverage on the long-term deal and say, listen, we're going to sign you. And so some guys get 80, 100 million guaranteed. We're going to guarantee you 20 million or 25 million. And you're going to have to earn the other 80 back in all these clauses as well, too. Mm-hmm. And so I think the Bucs hold more leverage than ever because I don't think there's another team around the NFL right now, based on what's going on, that would sign him to a lucrative franchise contract deal that most big-time quarterbacks get as well, too. I think they can put a lot of non-guarantee money in there and saying, you know what, if you get this, you do the right thing, we'll pay you out. But right now we can't trust you, so you're going to have to earn the money. And I think if he's a man, he'll probably do that and step up and try to do it. Mm-hmm. But if not, I still say the Bucs says, Brett, guys, what other team is going to spend $120 million on him and guarantee $80 to $100 million on him? What other team in this league will do that right now?
That's the question. You have to really think.
The Browns would do. No, I don't know.
No, they got Mayfield. They got Baker Mayfield. Yeah, so I think I agree with you. I think at the very least, if we want to talk about money in this thing, Jameis Winston, in a matter of hours, went from being paid the next highest quarterback in the NFL, or being paid the highest quarterback in the NFL, to now, you should just sort of be thankful we're offering you a contract extension.
Could be.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't say it. So, listen, I hope things work out with Fitzpatrick. And listen, and if you come out 1-2 of the first 3, and Jameis does come back for Game 4, and you beat the Bears, so you're 2-2 going into the bye, you got a shot. Mm-hmm. 1-3 just won't cut it, especially in this division for the quarterbacks they have to go up against as well too. So You know what? I did see Fitzy play in Arizona, and he looked all right for a little bit. But when you knew the interception was coming, you know it's coming. It's just this guy's just done it. I mean, his last year of the Jets, he was awful. I mean, he cost that team a playoff game, especially the last game against the Bills, and he hasn't improved since then as well too.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. But like I said, it's tough because the fan in you says one thing, and now that I'm older, the father in me says another thing as well too, and it's kind of like, well, okay, well, what do you do? So,
yeah.
But I hope it turns out for the best. Like I said, we love this franchise, we love this team. I think we're all, just when you think we're turning the corner, but that's, I guess it's a Bucs life.
It's a Bucs life. All right, Craig, well, I'm going to let you go. We'll open up this phone line for somebody else. All right, man?
Thanks
for calling in, Craig. It's our buddy Craig in Vegas. I said Craig would be our first person to call tonight outside of Tom Metrics. David beat him in, but that's all right. Craig, thank you so much for giving us a call in. Guys, phone line is open. We'll keep it here. Somebody in the chat room, a different Chris, says Winston has just lost about $60 million. Possibly. I don't know.
You have to see how everything else goes. The only thing working in his favor right now is it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And you sort of made that point, and we're making excuses for him, but there's a difference between 21 on the cusp of 22 or just turning 22 than being 24, and you're just a few months away from having your first kid, and you're going to get married soon to your longtime girlfriend. You hope, and I sort of want to say this. I've been holding off. I sort of wanted to hold off to sort of throw like a little jab out of Buccaneers Twitter because how Tom opened with the show, and then as soon as he hung up, you followed up with it.
Yeah.
If this is a 3-game suspension for conduct, like the victim here is, I think the media has given her the name Kate. That's not her real name.
Okay.
But that's sort of like, when you're talking about the subject, Kate is the Uber driver. She's the one who's been wronged here.
Right.
And maybe thoughts and prayers may be too much, but I don't see anything on Twitter about, hey, as a Bucs fans, I'd like to apologize to the Uber driver in Arizona. This action embarrasses me as a fan, and it embarrasses me that my quarterback has done this, and it's all Goodell did this, Goodell did that.
Right, they're out to screw the Bucs, and and I got to be honest with you. When I first heard this, I wasn't pissed because, as you've said a few times, and we've all said, we all expected something. We all thought something was. Now, I'll be honest. I thought there would be an appeal. I actually thought it would just be one game. I certainly didn't think that it would be over conduct. But even as you're talking there, Ren, and the thing is, and that's what makes talking about this, such a sticky subject, because you're right. If Jameis did this, regardless of the suspension, if Jameis did this, you're right. She is the victim in all of this.
Yeah.
If he's getting suspended and he still didn't do it, if he still denies the allegation, maybe she isn't. It's so hard to say that because I don't want to, especially as a man, I don't want to
minimize it.
Yeah, I don't want to minimize that at all. But, at the same time, I don't want to pronounce guilt over a guy who has neither been convicted nor has he confessed or admitted. And our only thing to go off of it is the NFL did a big investigation and they're going to suspend him for a couple of games. It's tough to equate one over the other.
NFL is not the court of law of the United States.
Exactly. And while it may seem that the court of public opinion is, it's not. And it doesn't actually mean, truth, because I'll remind you, she said, and the lawyer that she had happens to be the same one for the lawyer for the rape allegation back at FSU, they don't want to press it forward unless they're forced to. And Jameis himself said, I don't really want to get into a fight with you over this whole thing.
Right. I don't want to get in a fight about what happened, but I think you're confused about
but I think you're confused.
People in the car.
Exactly. So, it just, the thing is, in what I need for our own, to even really know how to respond. Like, we're doing this as a response episode, and the fact is we don't actually know how to respond because we don't know what happened. And I don't necessarily need all the gooey details. Maybe I do. I don't know. I'm kind of interested, but we need to know why they're actually suspending him, what they found out, or Jameis, and I want to hear from Jameis. Did you do it or didn't you? Did you or didn't you? If you know,
before I come down on final judgment, I'm waiting to see what Jameis says.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, there's the whole other thing, and if anybody wants to call in and chime in on this part of the conversation, please feel free. 864-729-2827. That's 864-729-2827. Now, all of that said, Ren, let's turn our attention to the season. Let's turn our attention to football, which is kind of what brings us all together here. Right. Some of the people have been talking about in the chat room, kind of agreeing with me of what I said earlier, that, Fitzpatrick, there is enough talent around Fitzpatrick, or Griffin, could be one of the two, maybe both, that the team should be okay. Like, in theory, the team should be okay. Let's remember Tom Brady a couple years ago. Jimmy Garoppolo goes out, didn't miss a beat. Patriots didn't miss a beat while Tom Brady was suspended for 4 games. Yeah. Because there's enough around him, right? And I have gone on record saying I don't think that those first 3 games are going to be as hard up as a lot of people seem to be thinking. Now, granted,
defense needs to show up, man.
Defense needs to show up. The guys around need to have whatever connections they need to have. People need to play. The offensive line needs to be better so that other things can happen. So I don't know. It just I don't know. How are you feeling about the season so far? At least the first half.
I'm still not worried about it. I mean, because let's really face it. Like, if we thought this Jameis Winston, suspension was coming, like something was coming, we also feel that the Bucs will probably be pretty happy with 2-2 after the first 4 games,
right?
That however that happens, that probably gives us a win against the Bears, and then that leaves the Saints, to pick up a win against the Saints, Philly, and the Steelers somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that record would have been fine. I think people were hoping that as Jameis as the QB.
Yeah.
Now it's so you're still sort of thinking that it's possible with Fitzpatrick as the QB. I don't think that Jameis makes such a big deal in a single game that if he's out, you just don't have you don't have a chance to win. You can't do as many things. You can't be as diverse offensively.
Mm-hmm.
But you, like you said, you got enough talent to win the games. Like, we see it, backup quarterbacks win games all the time.
Right.
So to mind, like, oh, here we go, we're 0-4 or 0-3, and the season will be over before he even gets back. No, none of that. I don't think any of that's true. Because honestly, even if Jameis was there, I wouldn't have been surprised at a 1-3 start. But that's like Tom said, the Saints lost their first 2 games, and they lost them bad. Like they lost like 42-10. Like 48 to like 28, like it was not good. It was like, oh my God, here we go, same old Saints.
Mm-hmm.
They got to win games, 52-54.
Right.
It's but
and they went on to win the division, and that's the other thing. We could go 1-3. Listen, if we go into the bye week 1-3, or we go into it 0-4, that does not look good. It does not bode well for the rest of the season. It does not mean the season's over. It does. No. It's so early in. Now that's a big hole to have to climb out of. It's a huge hole to have to climb out of, and you probably, somebody out there probably has some stat of, when a team goes 1-3, here's the percentage of times they make the playoffs. Somebody can pull that up for us. I'm not going to worry about that right now.
And they're right, but a soft part of the schedule comes immediately after that.
Right.
And I think I saw a tweet today, like, nobody in the Super Bowl era has had to play these teams with these records from the year before. Like, I think the total,
like what we're going to have to play, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think the total losses between all 3 of them is like 13, like 5, 5, and 3, like 1-13. Like, no one's had this run before. If that's all on paper. Like this, Wentz could not come back, and Breeze could,
teams from last year are not the same as teams from this year.
We found that out last year,
and that's true of us, and that's true of them. So
right.
So that's it. Well, all right. Well, guys, we're going to round this out. If anybody wants to call in, the phone line is still open, 864-729-2827. But Ren, we've kind of hit there. As we round this out, anything else that's on your mind as far as the suspension goes? I got to tell you, I honestly thought the tone of tonight's show was going to be way different. I really did.
So did I.
But
Tom set the tone for us.
Tom, it's his fault. I was ready to come in here and cuss and holler and throw stuff, and Tom just was like, "Hey, man, let's think about it this way." Yeah. Any final thoughts, kind of as we're rounding this out here?
Well, just to finish up, what I was saying there is immediately after those, first 3 games, we sort of hit the soft part of the schedule.
Uh-huh.
We got the Bears, and then we have 2 division opponents in there, Falcons, but the Browns, the Bengals, the Panthers. Mm-hmm. So after the first 3, those next 5, there's 2 very familiar opponents and the 3 weakest teams on the schedule. Maybe you throw the 49ers in there, maybe not. We'll see. So if it's a bad start, the schedule is set up on paper for the Bucs to get, to turn it right around right away. So
right.
I guess that'd be the final thought. On the Winston investigation, I'm sticking with what I said earlier. Before I really pass judgment, I want to. I'm going to have to hear from Jameis. In whatever shape, form, however it comes. I'm going to have to hear from him.
Yeah.
And how this goes down, and then I'll be able, and then I'll know how he reacts to it.
Yeah.
If suspension does happen, is going to weigh heavily on how I react to it.
All right, so let me. Well, before I do that, Corey in the chat room tells us that teams who start 0-3, the likelihood of making the playoffs, I'm assuming you're talking about, Corey, is 3%. That might be likelihood of winning the Super Bowl. I don't know. Probably that's a 0%, honestly. Likelihood is 3% is what they say if you start 0-3. But let me ask you this: you're talking about needing to hear from Jameis, because I'm with you on that. I need to hear from Jameis. Are you okay with a planned response that PR has gone over with the fine-tooth comb and worded it just so? Or
it depends on what it is. It depends on how it like. A canned response doesn't mean like coaches speak. A canned response means, basically he has memorized it and he's putting it out there. Now, if the memorization hits some of the points that I want to know about and satisfies me, I don't care if he's rehearsed it or not. Like, it's more of what he says, not so much how he says it for me. I mean, if I was in his shoes, we've talked about the money on the line. We talk about face the franchise. Not only money, but it's possible careers on the line here, long term, not tomorrow, obviously. But I would go in there as prepared as possible. I'm not going to go with this. Well, I'll just go up there, give a brief opening statement, and just wing it with reporters because I want it to seem like it's genuine. Like there's just too much at stake.
The Bucs wouldn't let him do that, though. I mean,
I don't know if they could stop him.
I'm pretty sure that Jameis would kind of do whatever they tell him to do at this point. Just given
I agree with you.
Given as much hot water as he's in, he's not going to go rogue and just do his own thing.
It's like you mess up at work. Hey, can you stay late tonight? Well, yes, I can.
Right.
Of course I can. Whatever you want. Don't fire me, please.
Right. God, I had something else I was going to ask you. I don't know. Anyway, that kind of wraps it up here. I think that's where I'm leaving this. If this is where and by me, I mean me personally, I think this is where I'm kind of at this point of, okay, if the NFL, first of all, we've got to hear from the NFL what the official action is, right? I'd like to hear from the NFL why they made that decision, and then we need to hear Jameis's response. And as far as the season goes, it's not doom and gloom for me.
Wait and see.
I think we've got enough talent. Assuming Fitzy is the backup quarterback at that point, we've got enough talent around him. I think we'll be okay. And I'm not even sitting here saying, yeah, man, if we can just get out 1-3, like even with Fitz in there, there's still not a game on this roster or on this schedule that we can't win. We still could win all of these games. Not going 16-0. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't think anything is a guaranteed win or loss, whether it's Jameis or Fitzpatrick under there. Though, make no mistake, allegations and everything else aside, I'd rather have Jameis under center. I think we all would, as is the point for this show. So,
I do have one last bit. I just got a message from Tom. The guest who opened the show.
Sure.
He's technically on vacation, so I wanted to give another shout out for actually doing that. So So I guess he's not supposed to be, he's away from the Times. He's not writing anything right now, and I don't know if he's beach lifed or anything, but another big thank you for him for coming on and giving us like 10, 15 minutes right in the middle of vacation time.
They did that. So thank you, Tom, for that, for taking out time. So I can imagine when you're a reporter and you go on vacation, a big story breaks, vacation goes on pause, on some level. I did also get a message from someone that they did pick up his 5th-year option. We were asking that earlier, but it doesn't become guaranteed until May 3rd of next year. So, so
that sounds right.
Yeah, so they, the Bucs could still certainly do something. This is what I was going to say earlier. One thing that my mind still goes back to is, Rick Stroud had a sit down with one of the Glazer boys, Ed, Joel, one of those two guys, and he asked him specifically about their confidence level in Jameis and what they know about Jameis. And if I was a good podcast producer, I would have that audio ready to go and I could just play it right now. But I don't. But,
there we go.
Mr. Glazer was under – he made no bones about it, that their faith and their trust is still in Jameis and everything that they know about the man of Jameis. They're riding with him. They're sticking with him. Does that still hold? Are they going to have to backtrack that a little bit, or what do you think?
I saw a tweet tonight from Greg Auman, and he used the word unwavering.
Yeah.
Talking about the Glazers' confidence, backing, wanting Jameis to be the quarterback of the future and long term for the Buccaneers has been unwavering, and I thought it was a great use of that word.
Mm-hmm.
But you're asking me if I was a Glazer, what would I do? Like, how would I feel about this? Well, it's not good.
Right.
I'm going to need to have a conversation.
Right.
And if I was the Glazers, I would put Winston on a plane, and wherever I'm at, like, he's there. Like,
we're talking
now. Yeah. Like you're coming and you're going to sit down, and it's not going to be like you're going to be in the boardroom and I'm going to yell at you. It's like, but we're going to be in the same room, and
yeah.
It'd be, like, maybe we'll have dinner, or you come to the house and we'll talk a little bit. But,
you're going to tell me exactly what happened.
And it's not going to be an interrogation,
right.
because people sort of like, you're in defense for your job and your life here sort of feels like, and you might not be totally truthful. It's like nice, relaxed, like, hey man, what's going on? Like, what happened? Is there anything else I have to worry about? Like,
right.
Like, is this like, listen, let's call a spade, man. This is not the first time you've had this behavior that's highly questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this something we have to worry about? I know we did our due diligence during the draft. You promised us this, that, and the other thing, and no more than less than a year later, you did it again. Allegedly. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. So, yeah, I mean, that's how I would handle it. This,
mm-hmm.
Craig from Vegas, talked about, sort of the finances and how the Glazers they know Man United is really the meal ticket, and the Bucs, I don't want to say they're an afterthought, but, if it came down to it, I think Craig was saying, if push came to shove and they had to sell one, they'd sell the Bucs. But it's a big investment, and the Glazers do want to win, and the Glazers have given the Bucs as an organization pretty much everything they've wanted. Like,
yeah.
$1 place, that's not that old. We've
mm-hmm.
heard the stories about Hugh Kohlerhouse's headquarters.
I mean, Malcolm didn't give us $1 place, right? That was the kids that gave us $1 place. Did that come from Malcolm? Okay. Well, the kids gave us the training facility.
Yeah, the indoor,
the cryo chambers. They gave us.
Yeah. And all this new construction, the new video boards, the new surround sound, the new Wi-Fi, all the
mm-hmm.
new menu items, the updates, East Club, West Club. Like, they're not just sitting back on their hands and watching the money roll in from the Bucs and not reinvesting.
Right.
I think they're in it to win it. But mm-hmm. It's a huge decision. It is the pivotal point for the Buccaneers for the next decade.
Yeah.
Is this decision what to do with Jameis Winston?
And, you say that, and it makes me think of what would I do if it was my son? Like with my son, regardless of what he does, he's still always my son, right? Like, I'm always in his corner. You talk about bringing him and sit down and say, okay, what's going on? Like, I'm not going to excuse your behavior, but let's talk about this so we can know how to move forward together. And it makes me think that the Glazers, here's what I think we know about the Glazers. They wait. They wait until all the information comes out. They wait until they see what's actually going on out there. So, we're going to see a lot of stuff, a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people assuming a lot of different things about what the Glazers are going to do or aren't going to do. And most of that is probably just based on what we would do if we were in their position or whoever is writing that particular tweet or Facebook post or whatever. But what we know about the Glazers, they really tend to wait, and they take a long time to make decisions. Sometimes longer than others, but I don't know that the Glazer. I would hesitate to say that the Glazers are going to have any sort of a knee-jerk reaction to this whole situation. They're really going to, they're going to play this one close to the vest as they always do. And I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, all right, Ren. With that, you got anything else for us, or tell us where people can find you on the internet?
Happy Selfie Day.
Is it Selfie Day?
Did you know it's National Selfie Day?
Oh, dear, where can people find you? Oh my gosh!
Or as the millennials call it, Thursday.
Thursday. Oh my god.
You're welcome.
Things I never
Twitter.
needed to know.
You're welcome. Things I was about to repeat what you said. The easiest way is to find me on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football.
If you guys want to get a hold of me personally, you can find me at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias. I'd like to say thank you to everybody who joined us in the chat room tonight at Mixler.com/ThePewterCast. The InstantCast is a show that we do Sunday nights after the games. 9 o'clock is generally about the time that we'll go with that. You guys can call in and let us know your thoughts on the game. And, we have them every once in a while throughout the offseason, and tonight was one of them. So thank you guys for joining us there. If you guys want to, if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, you want to join us later, just follow us at Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at ThePewterCast and you'll be, we'll notify you whenever these things kind of come up, because this one really just popped up, Ren, probably about 2 hours before we actually went live with it. So we said, hey, let's do it.
Emergency podcast?
Right.
About what?
Right.
Well.
So stay up to date with the show there on Twitter at ThePewterCast. Find us at Facebook.com/ThePewterCast. You guys can tweet at us. You can leave comments and post. We'll respond to everything that we get. Sometimes it might just be a like or something like that, but we will respond. Or if you're a little bit more long-winded than the 280 characters that Twitter gives you, or however many Facebook gives you, email us to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Rate and review us on iTunes. Join us patreon.com/PewterCast if you want to join our patron family and all the cool things that are going on over there. We actually had some exclusive content, Randy, you probably don't know about this. Had some exclusive content go out today, actually, for our patrons. So you guys go over there and check out what that is all about. You were. With that said, thank you guys so much, and we'll end this, I guess, as we always do, because Jameis Winston, we as fans are, we're loyal to the name on the front of the jerseys, right? So as it always has been and as it will be going forward, go Bucks.